Hey everyone, Christian Barker here. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, nearly aperitivo hour here in sunny Singapore. And this is Banter with Barker, my last for the week. It's been a great week. Hope you've had a fantastic week too. Some excellent conversations earlier this week with absolute style, men's style, classic style authorities, Alan Flosser and Will Belkey. And today I have shoemakers on planet Earth, a man by the name of Daniel Wegan, used to be the head of Bespoke at Gaziano Girling, top-ranking UK shoemakers, and is now out on his own. Hello, Daniel.
Hello,
Hey there,
hello.
mate.
How are you doing?
The connection's hanging a little bit. Hello, hello, hello.
Let
How
me
are you
just
doing?
switch my.
Sometimes it's better on data than on Wi-Fi. Oh no, spinning wheels of death with you there, Daniel. How are you doing? Is your connection okay?
Good, good. Yeah, it's good. I switched to another connection here. It seems a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. No worries, mate. How are things going? I was just giving you a little introduction. So for those who are joining us, I've known Daniel for
Mhm.
probably a decade now, since you were a wee whippersnapper, and
Yeah.
yeah, Daniel's one of the finest men's shoemakers, cordwainers on planet Earth. Used to be head of bespoke operations at Gaziano and Girling, which is considered amongst, if not the finest shoemaker in the UK. And now you're out there on your own with Catella. How have
Yeah.
things been going? Great time to launch a new business, huh?
Oh, perfect timing. I couldn't have asked for a better start. It's been nice and peaceful. Ease into things
Yeah.
without having to leave the house. Um, no,
Well,
like you said, it's
I
it's.
imagine.
I could have probably picked a better time, but considering the circumstances, I can't really complain too much. People have been responding well, and I did kind of travel around a little bit before all of the COVID-19 problems happened over the world. So I'm sure there's people in a worse situation than I am. So I'm not in a position to complain, not at all.
No, and look, I keep saying, for myself personally, obviously, there's less work going around at the moment for someone who writes about travel and food and drink and luxury goods that people are
Mm.
consuming a lot less of. At the
Mm.
same time, I think I'm really lucky in that I can actually, I can perform my occupation, I can do my job from home and from virtually anywhere. And I think the same sort of goes for you. You've always done a lot of your work out of your home and kind of taken your work home. And I guess, we should count ourselves lucky that there are many people out there in the world who are prevented from doing their job when they're quarantined at home, whereas you and I can keep on trucking and can continue doing what we do from the comfort of home.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you said, I've always worked a lot from home, and launching my business. If I would have launched a business with a prestigious London location and a lot of staff or a workshop with employees, uh, I'm sure I would have been in a in a worse situation than I am now.
Yeah.
That would have been very poor timing. But right now, it's actually given me some time to finish off some old projects, and because of the initial really great response, uh, I think this has given me a little bit of extra time. At this point, maybe a bit more extra time than I would like, but
Yeah.
it's but no, it's worked out okay. I really can't complain, and things are easing up a little bit, I think, in the UK, and
Yeah.
a lot of people reached out to me just before the lockdown that I was going to meet up in London or other places, and that just got put on hold. And in the beginning of the lockdown, I don't think anybody really knew what to expect, how long this would go on, what the impact would be. So it's just been kind of playing the waiting game. If somebody's told me in April that I'd be sitting and talking about the ongoing situation in August, I would I would have maybe lost my mind. But time flies, and I'm amazed as how quick the time has passed. It's I thought it'd be a real drag and feel like forever, but it's almost been more than a quarter of a year now. Maybe it'll be 6 months soon, and I don't know where the time went, but
Me either.
You just got to make it work.
Yeah, indeed. No, you look, the time is flying by. It's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? You're in the same place every day. I keep losing track of what day of the week it is. But look, TGIF, thank God it's Friday, and
sure. The weather's wonderful. I got some IKEA shelving coming today. Life is good.
Life is good. Well, look, let's talk about. Let's talk about
IKEA.
IKEA is a joy for someone of your background. It's the national heritage and everything, isn't it? So
you got to keep the Swedish economy going.
Volvo certainly isn't doing it anymore.
No,
but let's get back to Catella. So obviously, those who are familiar with your work will know you from Gaziano and Girling, where obviously you worked within the house style of those guys, the eponymous founders of that shoemaker, who had their own particular approach. How is what you're doing now that you're out on your own and you have complete creative control? How does that differ, or how do you describe the type of shoes that you would like to create under Catella, under as a Daniel Wegan signature sort of shoe?
I think most people that look at my work, I think most of them will see a very G&G like shoe, and even if I think I changed something, to most people I think it's a very much that kind of style. That's where I started my career, and that's was there for 10 years, so I think it's very hard to get that out of my system, and I don't really want to get it out of my system. Like, it's we made beautiful shoes at G&G. I'm sure they'll make beautiful shoes going forward, and I want to make a new kind of beautiful, attractive, functional shoe in the future. I think what I've been working on some samples and try to do some new things, and they're fairly refined bespoke shoes, and with try to implement some handwork, some technical challenges as far as pattern cutting goes, just to make them look clean and contemporary, and just be appealing to people, and wearable, and hopefully timeless as well, because these things live in people's wardrobe a long time, so you don't want to get bored with them too quickly. But I think a big thing will be the client will also decide the direction a little bit. I've been quite surprised that there's a lot of my new customers that has asked me to do things that are not very maybe G&G like, which I'm excited about. As an independent shoemaker, you don't have a lot of time of making a bunch of samples, even though you would like to, and maybe like express a vision to see if people will get into it. Like, you know, once you have clients and work to do, like that occupies most of your time. So what you get to communicate aesthetically on social media and maybe on trunk shows and so on, it's really the work you do for already existing customers. And if those customers can have a varied taste, it allows you to express a variety of things, and that might appeal to a broader audience than maybe if I only expressed my own personal taste. They will think that maybe that's all I do. But as a bespoke shoemaker, you know, you're a designer and craftsman, but all, you know, it's a service profession. Like, my job is to provide provide people with shoes that they want to wear. So it's much more important to me that the customer gets the shoes they want than I get to make the shoes I want to make, even though they're both important, but in the list of priorities.
The customer is always right? Most of the time.
We're open to compromise, you know, like any relationship.
Yeah. No, but look, I think, you know, just before today, I posted a couple of photographs of recent Catella creations in order to promote this conversation. And one of those shoes was, you know, looking at what you've done in the past with G&G, and I think looking particularly at your entries in the World Championship of Shoes, which of course you scooped and came out triumphant in last year, winning that World Championship of Shoes. But very svelte, very, you know, a very long line to them. Whereas one of the pairs that I was looking at was that much more traditional, more of a kind of rounded last, which is, you know, very traditional English, the kind of shoe that often a Japanese customer might favor. So you are looking at, obviously, you know, expanding or you know, exploring both sides, more that rounded, clumpy sort of style, as well as the very elegant, elongated last.
Yeah, it's you know, I like those shoes, and I think a lot of times shoemakers like to wear those kind of shoes.
Okay.
I think you know, I think it's important for anybody before they kind of start a business or so, is that you kind of mature a little bit in your design. Because what happens in bespoke quite commonly, I think, is that, you know, a customer, it might take a long time before the first time a customer hears about the brand or grabs their attention until they actually place an order. Like, it can be many years, and maybe the thing that first attracted them was something that the craftsman would have made, you know, a decade ago, or maybe even longer. So it's important to respect that that a lot of your appeal can be something you made a long time ago. So I try to find a style that I'm not going to change too much. But I think that those classic round shapes is something I want to have on my shelf to display to people, even though I know that most of my clients, they're going to want something different, that have a little bit more pizzazz to it. But I still want it to be part of the representation. And you have some clients that, you know, that's the only thing they're going to be interested in, all that chisel, patina, yada yada. Like, that's not for them. It's quite nice to make those textbook type pattern cutting textbook shoes, and I never made them before, so I thought I'd make a couple of them and have them on the shelf. And it's nice to have that real basic shoe sitting next to the more kind of extravagant ones. I think it makes, you know, it's fun to look at. but I know that's not going to be the bulk of what I do, and so far it's not what's been requested of me. So
Okay.
I should probably stop making those kind of samples and just make them myself.
No, you just need to get out to Japan again, and the orders will roll on in. Don't worry. They love
Yeah,
that.
you
Okay.
know, the Japanese are so good at making those classic shoes. You know, I almost gonna leave it to them. Like they
Yeah.
love those shoes as makers. They love those shoes as wearers, and they do a great job of it. But so I think I definitely want to go back to Japan. I was, you know, if it wasn't for COVID, maybe I'd be there right now.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I think the Japanese will appreciate my shoes.
For sure. I think
Mm.
everyone will. No, it's just when I interviewed Tony a few years
Mm.
ago, he said that you know, in the early days of the business, it was really, you know, his super loyal Japanese customers that really helped sustain it. So
Yeah.
Tony Gaziano, that is. Um,
Mm.
so look, you never know, you never know. But I've got a question for you, another question on styling. You know, I really like to look at what makes a garment or a piece of apparel kind of trend proof. And, you know, having spoken about that with a lot of tailors, tailors will generally say, you know, it's something that's very much in proportion for you, you know, and where everything is kind of middle of the road. And there was a famous sort of story with Cary Grant saying that, you know, all of the suits and things that he'd ever bespoken were generally middle of the road, you know, not too broad or too skinny in the lapel, and you know, trousers that were neither too tight or too voluminous, you know, everything kind of straight down the middle. And that allows something that, you know, I think if you look at to use Cary Grant as an example, if you look at the suits that he was wearing in the 1950s and 60s, you could very easily wear one today and no one would have any idea that it was a vintage garment. It would look very contemporary. So I'm just wondering what as you said before, you know, an excellent pair of bespoke shoes should last you decades and perhaps be able to be, you know, passed down to your son or whatever. It should last you a lifetime. What is it from a stylistic point of view that you think is important to make sure that a pair of shoes, you know, looks really timeless and is very trend resistant?
You know, I think you know, the shape of the last, the color, some of the proportions. I think most shoemakers that are in the higher end level, where I'd, you know, shamelessly would like to consider myself part of. I think there's very few of them that really get it wrong. You see people in the beginning of their designing ventures when they haven't been doing that long. I think it's very easy to feel like you want to revolutionize or reinvent the wheel, you know, and you're going to make shoes like nobody's ever seen before. And then you realize, you know, maybe you haven't seen them because nobody really wants to see a shoe like that.
Yeah.
But I think if you stick to like a fairly subtle color palette and don't go too extreme as far as like elongating shapes, like too long shapes and so on, you know, I think it's very hard to get it right. But it's interesting what you mentioned there with like that kind of middle of the road kind of suiting and styling, is that I think like if you look at like the 50s and 60s and what would be considered middle of the road back then, you know, maybe that middle of the road point change a little bit, you know, what would be considered middle of the road, like if you have a, you know, difference in shapes and so on. So I think, you know, because the shoes don't have to look like they did in the 40s or 50s to be considered timeless and classic going forward. Like you can look at something like some of the, you know, some of the Berluti shoes and the Cortez shoes that are probably when they were launched would be considered quite extreme. But now they're such a part of the menswear landscape that they've become classics in their own right. Like you look at like the Arca from Corte, you look at maybe the Andy loafer from Berluti. You know, I don't think that they will really go out of style too much, just because they're such iconic representations of their brands. I think that they will have a place in menswear, you know, next to like a classic full brogue from Lobs or something. So I think, you know, and I think that's good. It allows people to not have to buy something that they're not that excited about just because they want it to be timeless. I think you can, you know, buy with your heart and your head at the same time. You know, maybe you shouldn't tick all the options boxes just because you can.
Yeah.
Maybe you know, learning restraint is probably a good thing. But if you stick to classic colors, and also like there's a lot of, like I said, those more iconic styles of some of the French brands, they would definitely be considered more of the avant-garde side. But I think they will be worn a long time from now and looked at as beautiful classic pieces of menswear. Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, speaking of ticking all of the boxes, you do see, you know, a lot of guys when they have their first opportunity to have a bespoke suit made, they go a bit crazy. They're like, oh, let's put a, you know, this detailing, and let's have two, you know, two buttonholes here and in different colors, and let's put, you know, some weird lining under here and a strange lining and a belted back, and you know, they go for all of the bells and whistles. Do you find that when someone's getting their first pair of bespoke shoes, or one of their first pairs of bespoke shoes, that they're the same, or because it is quite a connoisseurial and well, and you know, it's a next level choice. It's not your first pair of shoes, is it? So it is going to be something for the man who's already got all of the ordinary stuff. So look, maybe he's going to be adventurous, or maybe not. I don't know. What do you find is generally the case?
I think this idea of people making really bad purchases is a little bit exaggerated. I think it's more common when it comes to like maybe made to measure, when you look at clothing, or made to order, like slight more you know, customizable, ready to wear, because it's at a more approachable price point. You know, I think there's more immature people, or people that are new to customization.
Okay.
They make their mistakes a little bit earlier than when they go like top tier bespoke. You know, I think there's a lot more mistakes made in entry level made to measure than in high end bespoke. But it does happen. You know, you have people that have more money than sense sometimes, and their first venture into bespoke is something like that. But you know, maybe there are other brands that see this kind of customers more frequently. I think especially now, as an independent, I think the person that seeks out me is a bit more of a nerdier type that does a bit of research. You know, I'm not that easy to find, even though social media and so on really helps. You know, I don't have a central like London location where you got people just popping in. So before people reach out to me, you know, they probably had a lot of good shoes already, or they're, you know, they've really given it a lot of thought. And most of my commissions at the moment are, I would consider, fairly classic, and there's nothing that I think is, you know, there's nothing out there that I think the customer is going to regret. You know, quite the opposite.
Yeah. Someone just posed the question. I think it was someone going by the handle of Tokyo Fedora, said, "What's the craziest request that you've ever had?"
I don't think I have that crazy request. You know, I have a few people, because I did a trunk show in Dallas you know, I got encouraged to do a bit of more boot work. Maybe not the traditional like cowboy boot, but you know, maybe something more I don't know, British inspired or European version of the thigh high or mid thigh boot.
Okay.
So we're doing a few things for people there, but I don't think they'll be crazy looking. But you know, I think there'll definitely be rarities in the British bespoke landscape. But I hope I can encourage people. You know, the Texas styling is so boot oriented that if somebody's gonna get boots made, it's definitely in Texas. So, and their boots are crazy already. So nothing I'm gonna do is gonna be considered crazy next to that. You know, there won't be any like coyotes howling at the moon and eagles.
Stars and stripes. And
yeah, there's no stars and stripes, and you know, it'll be very very subtle in comparison.
I see. And what about the sense of wearability? You know, I was speaking with on one of these conversations earlier in the week with a gentleman called Will Belkey, who had a website called A Suitable Wardrobe, and has had a vast number of adventures in artisanal bespoke clothing and footwear, and he was mentioning I think he said they were cleverly that were a green lizard skin or something, that he said he's terrified to wear them because they were so obviously so expensive, and because they're so sort of fine in appearance, that he's terrified to wear them. Is it important to you that you know the shoes that you make actually get worn and are practical enough, and are not perhaps at that level of? And a lot of people say it about Japanese shoes as well, that they just sort of want to look at them and put it on a shelf and have it sitting there because it's so beautiful, and that, but they're sort of afraid to wear it in the street because they're worried that it's going to get scratched or nicked or worn.
Yeah, you know, like I'm not in a position to tell people what to do with their shoes. I definitely get a lot of pleasure out of seeing something that, if something comes back for a resole and it's been worn and cared for, that's probably my preferred way of people loving the shoes I make.
Yeah.
If people just want to have them on a shelf to look at them, you know, that's very flattering as well. But you know, the worst thing I would like to see if people would be afraid to wear them because they don't want to scratch them or so on. You know, I put a lot of work into these things, and I think every shoemaker do, so that they can be worn for a long time. I think the only time it happens that people are, you know, too afraid to wear them if this kind of purchase is almost a bit too much of a financial stretch. And I think that it's unfortunate if that stretch makes them less able to enjoy owning it, that they're too afraid of kind of losing that investment or scratching it. So I think people should wear them like they stole them, you know, don't abuse them, but you know, like, don't wear them every day, like let them rest, use trees, use creams and so on. But you know, these things are, you know, if they're not going to be worn, I might as well glue them together, you know. There's no point in stitching them. I could knock these out in a day if they weren't going to be worn. But you know, I know a lot of people that have a lot of shoes, and just because out of the sheer amount of shoes they have and the rotation, you're not going to get these shoes worn that often. But you know, they should be worn, you know. But
yeah, well, I think you know what you were saying earlier about people worrying that they're going to lose their investment, you know, you have lost your investment if you never use the thing, haven't you? You know, if you never
Yeah,
get
and
wear out of it, you've thrown the money away. Why did you, you know, it's like having a car that you don't drive, or you know, a crystal glass that you don't drink out of because you're afraid of breaking it. What's the point?
yeah, and the secondhand value of bespoke shoes it makes it definitely, it's not an investment piece.
No,
It's worse than, I think it's worse than cars or anything else, you know.
absolutely.
Uh, so they're only, you know, the person that has the most value out of them is the person who purchased them.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes maybe people, you know, live a lifestyle where they don't get to wear dress shoes that much, you know. As a shoemaker, I wear a lot of New Balance and espadrilles at home. So the shoes I do own don't get that much wear, but it makes it a bit more of an occasion when I feel it's appropriate. And you know, I have a terrible time wearing dress shoes while I work, because I'm constantly like looking at them and thinking about like, oh, what should I do different? Maybe I should change the last like that. It's a whole like mind thing, you know. Much rather wear something that have like no personal relationship with.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, we're all flawed in various different ways. So
Yes, indeed we are. Indeed we are. Speaking of flawed people, I was having a chat with your friend of mine, Kevin Sear, earlier this week. No, he's a perfect gentleman, that man.
yeah,
Hello, Kevin, if you're watching. And Kevin was sort of. I was asking Kevin. I'm writing a story which will be published next week, about how people are dressing during this quarantine period, and whether or not men like myself and many others that I know are really sort of missing getting dressed up and can't wait to be sort of liberated, so that we can once again be strutting dandyish peacocks walking down the street in all our finery. And I mean, both Kevin and I was earlier this week speaking with Alan Flusser, the great men's style writer and clothier, and both the two of them were both saying that their customers are you know, saying to them, no, at home I'm wearing, you know, tracksuit pants, or I'm living in a t-shirt. You know, Alan Flusser said, and I quote, you know, people are saying to me, I have not worn trousers in 4 months, which is quite extreme. That's pretty hardcore. I've worn long pants at least 3 or 4 times over the last 120 days, I've got to say. What are you hearing from your customers? Are they sort of saying to you that they're still, you know, putting their proper shoes on, or like you, are they just grooving around the house in their espadrilles and New Balance and whatnot?
you know, I haven't talked to many of my customers about. Usually, if I call them, it's like we might be having a little
Delay.
Skype fitting session, so they might be
Okay.
wearing some of my trial shoes. But
Okay.
you know, I think I'll have to admit, I think there's not a lot of bespoke shoes being worn out there during COVID.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not, you know, you'll be lucky to know I made an effort here to put a little bit of put something on with a color just for this. So
It's a beautiful thing. Well, look,
yeah,
I will reveal that actually, you know, below this line, I've got my swimming trunks on, because I'm going to go and jump in the pool and have myself a beer after this and cool off. But I'm looking very businesslike up top, I think. So there we are.
yeah, no,
But
personally, I've actually been wearing trousers a little bit, you know, but I think most of that is, I made an effort to start a lot of exercise and stuff, so I lost a lot of weight. So I have a lot of trouser I can now finally fit back into. So I think, you know, I might as well seize the moment here and wear them while I can.
okay.
You know, soon I'll be, you know, hopefully traveling the world again, and you know, there'll be too many temptations around.
This is true. Well, I've gone the other way, Daniel. I'm finding that I think there's something in the fibers of my shirts and my trousers has sort of contracted over the last few
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
I'm really not sure what it is, but fortunately one's feet don't gain weight. So yeah, shoes
Yeah,
are still
no,
okay.
shoes are usually still okay. I've had a few customers I measured before COVID and that I might have fitted just recently, and some of them did like some extreme kind of weight loss things, and judging from the measurements, it's a little bit different. But yeah, nowhere near what you would experience, around your waistline.
Yes, yes. There may be some alterations required when I'm free to do that. Now, well, Kevin actually said to me, Christian, when was the last time you wore a pair of leather shoes? And I was like, well, virtually every day, but they're probably more likely my Stan Smiths or my Sperry's or whatever. Yeah, different type of leather. Now we had a question here from Call Me Jeffrey, who says, as an ex-private equity professional who left the industry but loves polishing shoes and wants to learn more about the industry, what recommendations do you have? And he says taxamiket. I don't know. That must be, maybe that's in Swedish or something.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah,
okay.
no. Shout out to the appreciation of the Swedish language there. Well, it depends if he wants to know about shoes or if he wants to know about the industry. I think every industry is always different to what anyone would imagine. I'm sure what I might imagine private equity being like and what it's actually like is probably two very different things.
Yeah.
But
maybe just a shoe polishing tip. He's saying that he loves to polish his shoes. So what would be your number one hint for that?
Oh, I'm terrible. You'd have to search out, our guys like fellow live streamers like Kirby Allison and so on. These guys are excellent. I don't think I've polished a shoe in years. Usually my girlfriend is here with me, News. They used to be the store manager of Gaziano Girling, and she does the patina and the shoe shine. She's excellent, but I might as well ask him about shoe shine because he probably does more of it than I do.
Okay, well, I would say, Jeffrey, have a look for our friends Mason and Smith, who apparently world's greatest shoe shiners, based here out of Singapore. Mason and Smith, at Mason and Smith on Instagram. You'll get plenty of amazing hints there.
It's great. I hope I can come out to Singapore and see all those guys again. They do a great job. I went to visit their store last time I was in Singapore. It's really, really beautiful, and I think they got a really interesting service there with a lot of shoemaking knowledge in the team as well, which is really nice to see. And they do some really high-end shoe care and repair work there, for sure.
Definitely. John's working on getting into your game as well. So watch your back, buddy.
I think we welcome John into the shoemaking industry.
Into the fraternity. So he's saying, I love polishing and I want to get involved in that as a job. Again, I would say, Jeffrey, look up Mason and Smith.
Sure.
They're the bee's knees. Very, very good. They've transformed some shoes of mine that I thought were absolutely dead. That I was like, I wore these through the snow in Geneva or something, and they were, they brought them back from the dead like zombies. Quite amazing.
No, he does a lot of cool stuff over there. I see him post some pictures sometimes, some before and after, and it's great. And I know there's a lot of nice bespoke shoes around in Singapore, and it's great that there's a business like Mason and Smith there to take care of these investments.
Indeed, they are investments. So, look, this might be a challenging question, but if someone said to you, Daniel, we're gonna put you on a desert island, and there's everything from sandy beaches to mountainous terrain. but you need to make yourself just one pair of shoes. That's all you're going to get to take with you. And it's got to be practical, and it's got to last. You know, this is a pair of shoes that you might be stuck on this island for the term of your natural life. What are you going to make?
First of all, this seems like a great tragedy, but I'll do my best with it. I would say
It'll be a great loss to the cordwaining world.
I was going to bring a basketball. It worked for that other guy, but sandy beach and mountainous. But you know, if it's a sandy beach, I'm imagining it being quite hot. So let's. But I'm not going to hike the mountains with a loafer. So it'll have to be a derby with a rubber sole.
Okay.
Plain toe. You know, I like to wear a plain toe derby with a short every now and then. So if I got to wear, you know, if I can only bring shoes, or maybe I can bring some clothing as well. I'll bring those swimming trunks and a mid-brown plain toe derby, I think.
I wasn't saying you'd need to be naked, but for shoes.
It's you know, you don't have too many. It's very hard to do laundry, I imagine, in there. So you know, you wanna maybe you save your clothing for special occasions, but you want to protect your feet from the
that's true
environment.
I mean, no, look, this is the thing, and this is the thing that I've discussed this with you before. You know, clothing. You know, you can wear clothing that's a little bit too small, and it's okay. You can wear clothing that's too large, and it's okay. You can wear clothing that's a perfect fit, and of course it's fine. But you know, your shoes are the thing that stand between you and the elements and the crap of everyday life, whether that's the streets, whether that's the mountains of this imaginary desert island. You know, there's nothing as important as your shoes, and nothing as important as the shoes having the perfect fit, because the difference of a couple of millimeters can be the difference between excruciating pain and heavenly comfort.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's you know, shoemaking and tailoring, you know, because we share sometimes streets and clients, that our jobs get compared quite a lot, but I think there's a vastly different challenge. You know, I'm not saying tailoring is easy. It's just difficult in another way. It's fitting the foot is very complicated. It's a very sensitive area of the body, and shoes are very firm, so you don't have that kind of margin for error that you have with a textile. You know, even if a suit is too small, you know, it might not look great, but it's not going to cripple you the same way. And you know, most of our, you know, foot problems, so many people have problem with their feet, and the majority of these problems are footwear related, and start at a very young age, you know. And so that's a whole industry on its own, you know, the orthopedic shoe industry. But yeah, like you said, you know, getting shoes that fit right, you can really change your life is a strong statement. And I'm a person that believes that any strong statement is per definition wrong.
Okay.
But it you know, it really makes a difference. And one of the reasons I got into loss making and shoemaking is that I could never really find shoes that fit me properly. You know, I have really bony, veiny feet, you know, quite sensitive. They're long and slim, so whenever anything you buy ready to wear is gonna be awful. You know, I would wear shoes that are too short to get the width right, and if the length is right, you know, they're just falling off. So once you get something that fit you properly now, you know, I couldn't imagine wearing anything else. And it's not snobbish in any kind of way. It's just so different. And you know, if you're an awkward fit with trainers and so on, you can just kind of get away with it, you know, because they're like an anti-fit. They don't really fit anybody. They're just a foam and you know, padding, so you can get away with everything. And it's good from a a sales perspective, you don't have to stock different sizes and widths. But like classic men's shoes, they were developed in a time where they would have basically all been bespoke, basically. So transferring that into ready to wear is much more complicated. And you know, there are a lot of issues related with ready to wear men's shoes because of the structure involved. You know, when you have something ill-fitting with that structure, then it starts to become quite uncomfortable. And that's why I think, you know, if you're able to make the investment in bespoke shoes, it can really be night and day, and it can make you love wearing these beautiful shoes. And rather than it being, you know, I remember when I got my first dress shoes before I was a shoemaker, you know, wearing them, you know, I felt really nice. I felt really well dressed wearing them, and it was cool in that way, but it was not the level of comfort. So it became more of like, you know, wear it on a night out or so on, not all the time. But now it's nice that I can wear them whenever I feel like it, and I'm not gonna feel like I'm gonna be crippled afterwards, you know.
Yeah,
it's great.
Absolutely. Well, it raises an interesting question. You know, I had an e-commerce delivery today of a new pair of Havaianas flip-flops, which is something I'm very confident buying over the internet. But, you know, a proper pair of Benchmade shoes is something I would approach buying from an e-commerce shop with great trepidation, and would want to be very confident that I could do free returns and all of that sort of thing. You know, do you think this situation that the world's in right now, we're pretty much the only, or, you know, I would say 90% of the shopping that's going down is happening online. Is that going to be particularly tough on the makers of, you know, it's fine for Adidas and Nike and whatever, because we all know, as you say, it's easy to fudge that a bit, and we all know what our size is in that. But do you think ready to wear, but, you know, proper leather-soled men's shoes are going to be suffering at the moment due to the fact that you can't go into the shop necessarily and get yourself properly fitted?
Yeah, you know, I don't work in the ready-to-wear sales industry. I have a lot of friends in that business, and I have talked to some of them during the whole lockdown, just, you know, catching up on them and how they're doing business-wise. And obviously everybody's felt a bit of a drop, but that's from, you know, probably maybe people are a bit more unsure financially if it's time to make those kind of purchases right now. But I think you're right. You know, it's shoes and high-end men's shoes that are harder, more challenging to fit than maybe trainers. It's probably one of the, you know, the items a lot of people would be reluctant to buy without going in a store and trying them out. Yeah. I think the people that are buying these shoes now at this time, a lot of them are probably people that know their size in a particular brand. They're quite comfortable with it, but I think the people that were looking to start investing in quality shoes and wanted to go and try something out in a store first, I think they're holding off right now. That would be my guess anyway. And
it's not like we need them either, is it? It's the same reason that people are not buying new cars, because they, you know, don't really need to go driving here, there, and everywhere anymore. So
no, exactly. You know, if you're not sure if you're gonna wear a pair of dress shoes for the next 6 months, you know, I'd be reluctant to purchase a pair personally.
Save that $1,000, and well, you might need it for rent or food.
You can get a lot of Havaianas for $1,000.
That you certainly can. You most certainly can. I think, actually, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, about 40. So that's not bad. Not bad.
No. That lasts you a long time if you don't leave the house.
All the colors of the rainbow.
Between the bar, between the pool and the tiki bar, you know, you get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, if only I had I do have a pool, but no tiki bar yet. But
Right.
we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
You know.
The conversation that I had earlier this week with Alan Flusser, he was, and again, I was saying to him, how do you think guys are going to dress when they come out of this situation? He was saying, the only unchanging trend in fashion, not just men's fashion, but in fashion over the last 200 years, has been just an increasing emphasis on comfort and people looking for more and more comfort. Now, comfort doesn't necessarily mean, as you and I both know, that you can't wear a properly made suit or you can't wear a beautifully crafted pair of shoes. They can be just as comfortable. But is the way that you're making footwear altered at all by that desire for comfort?
I had a phone call coming.
I lost you for a second. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was just saying, has the way that you make shoes, which is very traditional, and in most ways, the way that you craft a pair of shoes is the same as it would have been done several hundred years ago. But with now people, wanting more and more comfort, and I guess, that's partly flexibility, softer skins like, kangaroo and whatever. Does that desire for comfort, affect the way that you do your job?
Yeah, I think my clients are not on the extreme end on that spectrum, but I know that there's a trend within the bespoke industry that there's a lot of firms that have a lot of clients that are expecting or requesting a higher level of comfort, not really have like a real break-in period. They come from a background of wearing a lot of sneakers and so on, and they come into bespoke shoes from that end, expecting them to feel like a pair of Yeezys, which they're not gonna feel like a pair of stretchy mesh uppers on a marshmallow sole. Like the dress shoes are never gonna feel like that. It's a different kind of comfort. But I can, there's just a less emphasis on longevity and structure and more on comfort and aesthetics. So that's definitely a trend. I think, people don't really buy these things. They do last probably a couple of decades if you treat them well, but that's not the main focus anymore. Like they want it to be comfortable. And I think if you see the same thing in clothing and so on, they want to just be comfortable, feel relaxed. The whole sportswear revolution, I think it's back in the 70s and 80s and I think it's going to be hard to shake that off because, comfort, what's not to like, let's be serious. So I think these shoes from like the post World War era where you needed, the whole situation was different. Like now people live way more comfortable lives, and I think the footwear should adapt to that. These things can be tuned to do different jobs. So I don't have a problem with that. I think it's great. Yeah.
And look, exactly as you say, I've spoken to a lot of tailors to whom I've said,
I'm going to walk around there a bit because I think I got some IKEA coming, but I'll make it with you.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see the IKEA man at the door. No, I've spoken to a lot of tailors who have said, what I've said to them, do you have many customers coming to you for things like a seersucker suit, like a bespoke suit made out of a relatively cheap cotton, which you would think it's kind of, all of that work into something that's made out of a not terribly resilient, durable cloth. And they say, yeah, absolutely, because these guys, they just want something that is a comfortable and is a pleasure like that, and it doesn't have to last for 1,000 years. And I would imagine, look, if I had the wherewithal, I would happily come to you and say, make me some unlined, you know, soft kangaroo skin loafers that are, you know, have got a very thin sole and things for, particularly now for wearing around the house. It's, why not? If you got the money, why not?
Yeah, I think it's important to think of, you know, that what you want to wear and what you feel excited about is just as important as what you think you know is a reasonable way of buying these things. You know, you shouldn't be too rational and too plan too much. You know, everybody, you know, you see these lists in magazines of like, oh, the 5 shoes that every young man should own and yada yada yada, which is fine, but you know that shouldn't be the only way of buying clothing. You know, that then you could just, you know, buy a junior banker starter pack and, you know, be done.
Well, even for the bankers are, oh, you got the IKEA guy calling you again. Sorry. Bear with us a second, everyone. You have another call?
There we go. That was my friend's IKEA here.
There is the IKEA. Let's say hello to them.
So. Yeah, right now we're outside.
It's a beautiful day in sunny England.
It's a really beautiful day. You know, the climate is perfect. Everything is excellent.
Wow, that looks beautiful. You get like at least 6 or 7 days with a blue sky like that per year in England. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the lockdown, we had great weather, but we weren't really allowed to go outside. Yep. So the fact that we can now go out and enjoy it a little bit more is great, really great.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Well, look, I should let you go so you can get out your little Allen key and start building those those shelves. But Daniel, always a great pleasure to speak with you, mate. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today on a Banter with Barker. And thank you to everyone who joined us, particularly this gentleman called Jeffrey, who says I look like David Gandy, which I think, Jeffrey, you need to get some spectacles. You need to get checked, or maybe it's just the fact that you can only see me from down here. I don't know, but that's very kind of you. But super kind of you, Daniel. Thank you, and all the best for Catella. Everyone follow Catella. Daniel's doing amazing work. See you soon. Live long and prosper, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now.